Not all paths are straight. Some twist deep into the unknown. Hey, I'm Amanda Joy, and every Thursday, a new episode of Down the Crooked Path beckons. Paranormal stories, strange encounters, and folklore that lingers long after dark. So take a deep breath, grab your flashlight, or let the mysteries guide your steps. Down the Crooked Path, available wherever you listen to podcasts.
Canadian Creepies is recorded on the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples, under the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. These lands and waters have been cared for since long before Canada existed, and they remain deeply important to Indigenous communities today. As we tell stories about darkness, injustice, and memory, I want to acknowledge the very real histories of colonization, violence, and erasure that Indigenous peoples continue to endure. A land acknowledgement can't undo that harm, but it is a reminder to keep listening, learning, and supporting in truth and reconciliation in meaningful ways. We share these stories not to forget, but to shine light, always with respect for peoples and nations whose land we live on. Canadian Creepies covers true crime, dark history, and disturbing events. Some episodes may include graphic descriptions or sensitive subject matter. We do our best to handle every story with care and respect for those affected. That said, we sometimes use humor and sarcasm as a way to process heavy content, never to disrespect victims, survivors, or their families. Listener discretion is advised. Canada's paranormal roots run deep. We tell ghost stories around flickering campfires and share unexplained encounters with family and friends. Yet our polite, risk-averse nation often buries these experiences and rarely encourages sharing them in the places we live or in our arts and entertainment. Fear of stigma and discomfort with the unknown, especially death, keep the supernatural in the shadows. We allow only flirtations with ghosts, ghouls, and goblins, mostly at Halloween. Eerie Whispers explores Canada's haunted history, drawing from the diverse folklore of its immigrant communities and the traditional stories of the Indigenous peoples. It asks why Canadians, unlike Americans or the British, are reluctant to celebrate this part of their culture. Brian Baker encourages us to embrace the uncanny and find the courage needed to amplify our nation's supernatural voice. Now I'm going to talk about you. Brian Baker has been a journalist for over 15 years, which means the University of Toronto alum is plenty curious. He is intrigued by what Canadians believe when it comes to the paranormal, so much so that he founded the Superstitious Times, a website dedicated to exploring Canada's paranormal lore. He lives in Toronto. JJ Dupuis is the author of... Oh, I didn't need that. He lives in Toronto. I'll edit that out. Or I'll keep it in there. I don't know.
Right.
So welcome to Canadian Creepies. You're the inaugural interview I have here.
Awesome. Thanks. It's an honor.
It's really exciting. What is your earliest memory of being intrigued or spooked by the paranormal?
Well, yeah, I would probably say it's funny. I just shared this with a new colleague at work today. But when I was 3 years old, living out in British Columbia, I had a weird experience that probably formed the bedrock for my interest in the paranormal. My parents had gone to Vancouver Island to kind of escape, and left me with friends of the family, and probably about 3 or 4. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night. I saw the door kind of swing open slowly, and because the people I was staying with, they had lots of cats and dogs, I thought it was a critter. I crawled to the end of the bed, no dog, no cat, and I pulled myself back up to the head of the bed, looked into the opposite corner of the room and saw a black mass kind of taking the form of a person. And I just kind of gripped my stuffed Dino and threw the sheet over my head, and then, I think I fell asleep. I mean, I was 3 at the time, so the memory is very kind of blocked, and there's certain parts of it, right? So that was my first experience, and of course, growing up in the 1980s, you had so much pop culture revolving around the supernatural that, it just kind of enabled that interest in the supernatural.
Yeah, with like Ghostbusters.
Oh yeah, Ghostbusters, Monster Squad, that movie Baby about Mokele Mbembe in the Congo.
Oh, so goodness.
You had all this stuff going on. Flight of the Navigator.
Okay.
It just was. It was everywhere. E.T.
True. Yep.
And then it might not have been as present in pop culture as it is now, but horror characters like Pennywise and Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers kind of got their start in the 80s, like late 70s, early 80s. So I was kind of growing with that kind of horror aspect. So I mean, it was there, and combine that with an interest in the supernatural, and yeah.
And here we are.
Yeah.
Was there a single moment, story, or experience that sparked the idea for Eerie Whispers?
I think my work with the Superstitious Times lent itself to the book. Originally, when I spoke with my friend Kwame Fraser at Dundurn, he wanted me to write something about cryptozoology, and the pandemic hit, and that was scuttled. So I scuttled it myself. But as I was interviewing people over the phone about the challenges of being a paranormal investigator in Canada, trying to get access to locations, trying to cut through bureaucratic red tape and all that stuff, I noticed a trend, and the trend was that Canadians are rather tight-lipped. Heritage board members are very conservative with regards to that, and so that I wanted to kind of focus on that aspect of how we address the paranormal in Canada. And hold on a sec. Jen, did you need me to open something? Sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Hi, Jen.
Hi.
Stop. Are you opening a jar for her?
Thank you.
Yes.
That's the cutest thing ever. It's staying in. That's so sweet. My partner is a musician. He works from home too, so we're always, it's
Right on.
Yeah, I get it.
But going back, I pitched the idea of why are Canadians, we're not as open as say the British, where it's good ghost story comes along during Christmas time, and that Victorian aspect of sharing ghost stories, almost Dickens morality tales through that vehicle of the supernatural. And then the Americans, who pretty much capitalize on anything, right?
Anything.
So, and dark tourism is a big deal down there. And then Canadians, we're very reserved. We're very laid back, and we don't like to take risks. And talking about the supernatural is considered on a below the surface level, almost like a social taboo. And in North America in general is very standoffish when it comes to death. And I think I wanted to really approach through a social anthropological lens why Canada is the way it is when it comes to ghosts.
Well, I think you're doing a great job with the book. I'll be honest, I thought, set the date, then I'll be able to finish the book. Life kept lifing. But I'm on page 128, and I'm like, there's so much that I've referred, like, there's a lot of stories you've shared in here that I've referred to on the podcast, like in earlier episodes. And there's some that I will be referring to on later episodes. So I think you just do a fabulous job just with the whole book. Just wanted to get that out there. You're welcome. Do you personally identify as a believer, skeptic, or something in between? And has that changed throughout your research?
As a teenager, I was so immersed in it that I would say I was rooted in the believer camp.
Right.
And then it's interesting. When I went to university for archaeology,
That's cool.
and they kind of flushed that whole Indiana Jones supernatural Laura Croft thing. Laura Croft was still just making her way as a character in pop culture when I was in university. So there was real emphasis on kind of deconstructing that pop cultural aspect. The professors, like, you're not here to, raid tombs and take stuff. And a lot of the working parts of those booby traps are probably fallen into disrepair long before Indiana Jones got there. So it's that aspect that they kind of took out of me.
Right.
Being a journalist, looking at the facts and writing and dealing with that aspect of my profession, it kind of swayed me further into a healthy skeptic.
Right.
I still have I said in the book that I'm an agnostic atheist, not very rooted in any organized religion aspect, but that doesn't mean I don't have a passion for what people believe and how folklore gets started and how the stories perpetuate and really represent us as a culture.
Yeah.
Whether it's the War of 1812, I find Canadians really learn more about their history when there's a ghost story involved.
Yes.
And
yeah. I live near Niagara-on-the-Lake, so those Fort George ghost tours are constantly sold out.
Yeah. And I was born in Welland, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's all well and good.
Yeah. There you go.
Why do you think the Canadian brand, polite, reserved, and rational, clashes with our paranormal curiosity so strongly?
Oh, that's a very good question. And I love it.
I can't take credit for it because I'm not a journalist. I had ChatGPT help me with these. Got to be transparent about that.
No
so if any
worries.
you're like, that's a weird question, we'll just skip it.
Oh no! It's there are as the saying is, there's no weird or silly or dumb questions. It's just your curiosity. I think Canadians. There's so much to it. When I was researching the book, I really wanted to kind of talk about the economics behind the paranormal in Canada, and I touched on it briefly, but I think there's this uptightness with regards to anything that can't be substantiated or rooted in the logical or practical. So Canadian culture is very pragmatic, and I think one of the biggest challenges is trying to get Canadians out of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
And we have these like 4 pillars, like hockey and beer and these stereotypes. Yeah. And there's these stereotypes, and this is our comfort, and this is our go-to for as a culture. But I think that kind of we developed through discussion, rational discussion. All our treaties with Indigenous, even though our governments haven't really paid much attention to them.
I don't.
To be fair.
Many episodes on that.
Yeah. And it's that was the one thing about Canada's treatment of Indigenous and the Métis. And realizing that thankfully the narrative behind people like Louis Riel has changed over time, that he's not this upstart. He's actually he was representing the people who were offered and promised land, but had it yanked away by the Canadian government, right? And then of course they're going to be pissed off.
Yeah.
So I think, it's this let's just say, facade of discussion with Canada. Talk things through rationally. And that kind of forms the foundation of, well, we're not going to talk about anything that's woo-woo, right?
Yeah.
We're not a country outside of, Quebec with the Catholicism influence. We're not a country that weighed heavily on, say, the U.S. with the Puritan kind of movement that came across. There are pockets of that in Canada. I'm not saying we're devoid of that religiosity or ecclesiastical kind of approach to things. But I think that changed drastically after the Quebec Quiet Revolution, right? And religion was not an emphasis as much anymore, even in Quebec. So I think that secularization also is part of it. We do create, immigrants bring a lot. And that's why I wanted to talk about immigrant populations in Canada, bringing their beliefs as well, and how that contributes to the tapestry.
I love that. We love that. We talk very strongly on Canadian Creepies, how we love immigrants.
Yes. And, you get the stories of the gin, you get the Dybbuk.
Yes.
And, I talked about the Caribbean diaspora, Toronto having a rich Jamaican population, Trinidadian. Yep. So I think, that needs to be part of the conversation as well. And talking about the Old Hag, which is a very consistent theme with regards to spirits and the supernatural across the world. The sleep paralysis, the demon that's on the chest, and the Old Hag and Caribbean diaspora stories. And I think that's really totally cool in that aspect, that we do have the folklore coming over, and then it adapts to our norms.
Yeah.
The one thing I really want to, if I do write a second book, it'll be focused on cryptozoology.
Love that.
How we...
We'll interview you again.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. The stuff like loup-garou, and when it first started in Canada, you look over in France and you see the Beast of Gévaudan happening. And so you're looking at the 7 Years' War and this history, and then somehow people coming across the New France start talking about loup-garou, and the Métis people, their adaptation of rougarou, right? So it's that aspect there, and cultural, the wave of course, spiritualism that happens. So Canada does get into these trends. I know I've kind of really gone off course, but
no, I'm following. I'm just my questions are here.
Yeah, I think there's an interest, there's a passion. Canadians do find it fascinating, but when it comes to money, and I think money is one of the biggest drivers, we shut up. Yeah, it's like, I don't want to lose my job over having weird thoughts. I don't want to have, it's outside the norm. And we're also, when you talk about ghosts, the prevailing theme is it's like somebody who passed on. So you're dealing with death, and the Western world just doesn't handle death very well.
We don't like it.
Except for Mexico, where there's that tie-in, Dios de los Muertos, and I'm working on a feature for Haunted Magazine about Santa Muerte. But, the outside of Mexico, the U.S. and Canada really does not do death well.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
And, it'd be economics, cultural norms, and just Canadians being all around polite. I think those are really the big fixtures as to why we don't want to talk about the ghosts openly.
Yes. And Canadians also love horror TV and movies, yet seem shy about claiming our own folklore, as we just talked about. the question is, what's behind that disconnect? But we just talked about that, I think. You know what I'm saying? We just talked about... Sorry, you froze for a sec.
I think, yeah. There was a bit of a freeze there. I didn't hear the full question. Sorry.
That's okay. We're coming back. The question is, Canadians love TV and movies, yet we seem shy about claiming our own folklore. And the question is, what's behind that disconnect? But I think you kind of covered that.
Yeah, and if I may add to it.
Yeah, for sure.
As one of the fascinating things I've always noticed about Canada and the art scene is our inability to address the supernatural openly.
Yes.
So you'll get Margaret Atwood writing great speculative science fiction, but she's not science fiction. She's Canadian literature.
Yes.
And you have to say that, like Mark Leslie said, I have to say that snootily. But
yes.
I think that kind of lends itself to this stigma in the Canadian arts community that they're liberal elites.
Right.
And I think that uppityness and that pretension, big award ceremonies like the Geller, and not knocking it, we want to praise our writers and lift them up. But I think genre fiction in Canada has been poo-pooed on a lot.
Yes.
And that's why we run to the U.S. to get that succor for, I'm a horror hound too, so it's like a lot of it comes from the U.S. And Canada has produced some great stuff like The Brood, and, The Changeling was a co-U.S. Canada production, and
Ginger
TV,
Snaps,
of course.
I think, was Canadian.
But I think there's that, again, that kind of, we don't want to go into those waters. We don't want to really dip into our folklore, because a lot of Canadian folklore is rooted in Indigenous stories.
Yeah.
And some people are, I remember talking to people about the Indigenous stories, and they're of white European background. I don't want to address it. I feel I don't have the background to address that. And I think, I approach it as a journalist. I want to talk about these stories. I want to learn. I think,
right.
As the one thing that my journalism background has afforded me is learning about cultures and making me more empathetic through that process and understanding where Indigenous beliefs, and there's so many different nations across Canada, going from Cree to Blackfoot to Haida, all these different nations in Canada have also different interpretations of stuff, all the way from Wendigo to Turtle Island to so forth. So, I think that cultural fabric and our artwork is essential to sharing our stories. Whether it's talking about the ferry mounds in Newfoundland, or the ghost ships that kind of dot the maritime landscape. I think these are things that need to be kind of shared through our arts, and unfortunately they're not, because there's a kind of pretension to it.
Yeah. And now we're going into some paranormal versus practical Canada. Do you think our climate, so long winters, isolation, and rural landscapes, maybe not particularly to us because we're in southern Ontario, but do you think that contributes to a kind of quiet, haunting energy?
Yes. When I spoke with Georges Baudry, he spoke a lot. He grew up in St. Boniface outside of Winnipeg there, and he offered a lot of great stories that his parents told him to keep them close to home.
Right.
So that isolation, going out into the wilderness and succumbing to the elements, that's why we have these boogeyman stories, and they're prolific throughout the whole world, really. I mean, whether you got the Krampus and all these other stories like Kelpies, don't go close to the water because a Kelpie will come and drag you in. So it's borrowed over the years through the generations that emigrated to Canada. And I think that isolation, we share those stories with our family members. We talk about forerunners in Nova Scotia. We talk about tokens in Newfoundland. We talk about sea serpents in the mountains of the mountain lakes of BC and Alberta. So it's there. People share these stories with people they're close to, but they don't go outside of that community.
Right.
That's the comfort zone, right?
And we have ghost towns, battlefields, shipwrecks, asylums, and logging tragedies. So why aren't we telling these stories loudly? Because when it comes to logging tragedies and, well, I was going to say asylums, but maybe not, but like shipwrecks, logging tragedies and shipwrecks, those would be mostly European. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Am I making sense?
You. Still haunting the same old fast fashion? Time to dig up something better with Back from the Dead Goods, a Canadian small business where forgotten threads get a second life and sustainability meets spooky. This isn't just upcycled clothing. It's resurrected fashion with an eerie edge. Handpicked, reworked, and revived, every piece is as unique as a ghost story whispered at midnight. And because you're a part of the Canadian Creepies family, you get an exclusive deal. Use code Canadian Creepies at checkout for 10% off. Find them lurking on Instagram, Etsy, and Poshmark. Links are in the episode description. Give your wardrobe a second chance at life, if you dare. Once upon a time, in the land of everyday moments, there lived a sprinkle of magic called icing sugar photography. From sticky cake smash smiles to wind-swept yes moments, they capture the sugar sweet, the beautifully messy, and everything in between. Whether you're a blushing bride or a blooming family, or just want to freeze time for a second, icing sugar photography is your fairy god lens. Visit icingsugarphotography.com and follow along on Instagram at icingsugarphoto. Let your story sparkle, because life is sweet and memories should be too. Looking for your next obsession? The Creators Collective Podcasts is your gateway to the dark, the chilling, and the downright fascinating. We're a community of independent podcasts with one goal: to share the best in true crime, paranormal tales, folklore, and unexplained mysteries. Whether you crave cold cases that won't stay closed, haunted histories that refuse to be forgotten, or stories that make you sleep with the lights on, there's a show waiting for you in the collective. And when you join us, you're not just listening to one podcast. You're stepping into a world of creators who love this stuff as much as you do. Check out the Creators Collective today. Follow the link in our show notes to discover your next favorite podcast. We'll be waiting for you. All right, creeps, real quick. If you've got a Canadian business or project that you want to reach our spooky little corner of the podcast world, we've got ad space available on Canadian Creepies. And hey, if you're an artist, activist, podcast host, musician, writer, content creator, actor, or just someone with a strange or chilling story to tell, we'd love to hear from you too. We're always open to collaborations with folks who vibe with our creepy, curious little corner of Canada. Email us at CanadianCreepiesPodcast@gmail.com and let's get weird together. Let's take a moment during this break to talk about something that matters. Something that doesn't get to be background noise. The Anishinaabe-Moan word, ni ki nagana, means we are all related, and we are. But relationship isn't just about words, it's about responsibility. Canadian author Naomi Klein once said, "It is not enough to say that we live on Indigenous land. We have to act as if we do." And one way to do that is by supporting Pay Your Rent, a grassroots mutual aid initiative that offers direct material support to Indigenous organizers across this land. It's not charity, it's rent. For those of us who aren't Indigenous to this place, it's a way to show up differently, to redistribute some of what's been taken. The Pay Your Rent Fund started as a one-time request for help in 2018 and grew into a nonprofit called Ni Ki Nagana. Your monthly or one-time donation can help provide food, hygiene supplies, housing support, and resources for Indigenous-led resistance and community care. So if you've ever said, "We're all related," ask yourself, are you being a good relative? Visit payyourrent.ca and find out more about how you can be part of something better. Now back to this case.
I mean, I mentioned earlier about the history being shared through ghost stories, and I think that keeps that history alive and those people, whether or not, say, the Angel Inn, Captain Swayze or whatever is an actual person. It's still emblematic of the battle between the Americans and the British Empire at the time in 1812, and that keeps that history going. You'll also see like Barkerville in British Columbia and the Klondike Gold Rush, and you'll hear these stories from the interior of British Columbia all the way up to Yukon about the Klondike Gold Rush. And Dawson was a city that was built up around the gold mining and that lust for gold. And you have Klondike Kate and all these stories that stay alive because there's like, well, is Klondike Kate still haunting Dawson City? It's like these aspects. And I think, there's so much energy around the railway hotels as well. And, it's that part of history, these important parts of history, and kids snore through history class unless there's something lurid about it. And I think that might be the draw in the U.S. with true crime and ghost stories. I don't see that as much in Canada. Not to say it's not there.
Right.
But it's at arm's reach. These are true crime stories that have, spanned generations, really. So, the Corriveau, La Cage de Corriveau in Quebec City, or a Fantan Alley in Victoria. They're rooted in these true crime stories, and the places are allegedly haunted. And metaphorically speaking, they definitely are haunted because they have this story attached to them, and then it creates wow. What was going on? Victoria was a very, very debauched bacchanalia city when it was starting from the fort days all the way up, right? So it was like a Las Vegas, Wild West of Canada. But, it's that aspect of these historical moments in Canadian times that kind of recorded and stay recorded and are almost romanticized through these ghost stories.
And do you think we are afraid of ghosts, or are we afraid of what ghosts force us to confront? And we have touched on this a little bit, but mortality, injustice, grief, and unfinished stories.
Oh, yes. Yeah, the whole Victorian trope of unfinished business for sure. But it forces us to confront ourselves. And I think, in 2021, the Kamloops residential school, that was like I always knew we did something bad.
Yeah.
Just being a history nerd and always knowing about this stuff and realizing that, we were not good to Indigenous people at all.
No.
And, guilt is a big factor in our ghost stories. It's white guilt. I know a majority of our stories are white people.
Yeah.
And I think that's white people playing it safe. I don't necessarily think it's perpetuating white narratives. It is subconscious. But it's also the thing that, it's not our story to share. That's the Canadian approach. It's not our story to share. If we're going to talk about Swift Runner out in Alberta, or if we're going to talk about a location that's haunted by an Indigenous person, there's that hesitancy. And that's why you get a predominant amount of white ghosts. And there's a stand-up comic who basically, there's no such thing as ghosts, because it's like, there's no black ghosts, right? And it's like, and I think Colin Dickey kind of hit the nail on the head with regards to the plantation in Louisiana, the famous one with the story of I'm trying to remember the name of the ghost, but she had her ear carved off by the owner, the plantation owner, because she had been caught eavesdropping. And that story is not rooted in history. She allegedly poisoned the plantation owner's wife and kids, and they lived ripe old ages. So it's that white guilt that's factored into that story and continually perpetuating itself. And there's the one story that I found was constant throughout Canada was the woman in white.
Yes, so there's so many women in white.
Yeah, I mean, from Montmorency Falls all the way out to Banff Springs, it's ever present. It's oppressive, and I think that I posited the idea that everyone was reading Wuthering Heights, and that's why we have Catherine, the ghost. And she's the woman in white, right? So it's like kind of perpetuated.
Forlorn over Heathcliff.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And you got the Forlorn Bride stories, like in Algonquin Resort and St. Andrews and New Brunswick and so forth. So it's like that element I find, it's at arm's reach. We can share these stories because they're Victorian and they're 100 years old at least. So we don't have a physical tie to it. So it's playing it safe that way. As you notice, there's not a lot of current, up-to-date ghosts.
Yeah.
But there probably are. Canadians are tight-lipped, especially if it's a private household, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you get these stories, personal stories of forerunners and tokens and so forth, and that kind of brings it to the present. But I think a lot of Canada's more famous ghost stories are rooted in that white guilt, that idea of what it is kind of a sexist aspect of. I won't say that might be accurate, but the woman in white seems to be this ideal Victorian perception of a female, forlorn after losing her love, right? And it's just that romantic ideal that keeps people reading Bronte sisters stories as well.
When she could have actually been just like thrown off the cliff.
Yes.
She didn't leap out of love. She could have been thrown.
Yes, exactly. So it's... So it's interesting that way. The stories and the narratives change. The way we dealt with our Indigenous, the way we dealt with our mentally ill, like with the asylums, and how the evolution of our healthcare system during the White Death and these sanatoriums like Tranquille in Kamloops and Riverview Hospital, of course, in Vancouver. These are like monuments to our history, and the stories that come from them are just as monumental, I find, in shaping us culturally. But getting those stories out is very challenging and very niche.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I could, just like speaking personally, there's like some death and personal ghost stories going on, but it's not happening to me, so I'm not going to speak to it. Do you know what I'm saying? Because that's polite.
Yes.
I'm going to get permission first.
And that's the one thing. The permission comes from these, a drunken kitchen party on the East Coast.
Yes.
Sharing their story. I saw the ghoul ship at Chaleur Bay. Or, around the campfire, and the embellishment. And I think that's where we get a lot of those bigger embellished stories about Swift Runner and all that. Or, seeing like, Tommy Thompson in the park and his story, of course, being killed and disappearing and so forth.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting, I think, when it comes to Canada, that personal connection that you mentioned is key in sharing the stories.
Yes. I think, I have a good one. What are what is one of the most convincing testimonies or documented cases you've encountered?
Wow. And that one forces me to think. You know, the most popular ones are the ones that don't have a big paper trail. Like Banff Springs, there's no open record about a bride falling down the stairs, but there is a record of Sam, the bellhop at Banff
Yes.
Springs. So people will see this older gentleman in kind of an older uniform helping them get their luggage to their room. And then when they turn around to give him a tip or gratuity, he's gone. And
Way to
then
go.
there is photographic evidence that he worked there.
Yeah.
And he's buried down a hill from the Banff Springs in the cemetery there. So he's an actual person, which I find very, very convincing. And I like that story because he's dedicated to his work.
Yeah, I was going to say loves his job. Loves
Yeah.
the people.
And that's one of those lighthearted stories where it's not rooted in violence or tragedy. It's rooted in patterns of behavior. He went to work. That was his life. That's what he identified as, and it was a part of his identity, and he kept doing it afterwards. And we do have these enduring stories of ghosts at work. So the Headless Brakeman in Vancouver, of course, right? And then the Algonquin Resort in St. Andrews, which seems to almost parallel a lot of the Banff Springs ghost stories. The Night Watchman, which you'll get a lot of those stories. And it's also one of the theories behind the St. Louis Lights in Saskatchewan.
Yes.
So it's fascinating. I mean,
It's
like,
so fascinating.
yeah. So getting the job done, but maybe just an accident happened on the job, and it's interesting. When I did the North chapter of my book, I found Yellowknife. There's two mines, and there was an explosion at the one mine that killed multiple miners. And the one investigator I spoke to, Andrew Silk, he said that there's some stories that come from that, and that could be kind of rooted in that labor aspect, but there's also the tragedy of there was a union, there was a labor dispute, an explosive device went off in the mine, and then it created this whole court case. It was a very public court case, but because it's so close, it happened in the 90s, I think 90s or the 80s. I don't have I do have a copy of the book.
Perfect.
So, yeah, here, the North, Atlantic Canada, Quebec, and Ontario, and the North. So yeah, Yellowknife. Here we go. That's Nunavut. So yeah, the two mines that are there. Pine Point, Con Mine in Yellowknife, and Giant Mine. They're still active.
Oh, wow.
And then, of course, the explosion, an underground explosion, was September 18th, 1992.
Wow.
So the bomb killed 9 miners: Chris Neal, Joe Pandiv, Norm Howard. So all these people, they have living relatives. And I think that's why you don't really, Con Mine doesn't really want to stir up ghosts, to use pun intended,
Yeah.
with people, living relatives of those victims, right?
Yeah.
And then that's the politeness of Canada. We don't go into that dark area that I find a lot of U.S. people, investigators, do. Mm-hmm. I mean, you don't hear anything. There's what's the lake? Gibson Lake, between St. Catharines. And you go over, when you're driving into St. Catharines on the 401, there's like a very low, shallow lake. And that's where they found
The body.
Yes,
Yeah.
Mahaffey's body
Yeah,
in
I was going to say
concrete.
Leslie Mahaffey, yeah.
Yeah, so it's...
On Carla and Paul's wedding day.
Yes,
By the
yes.
way. Awful.
Weird synchronicity there, but...
Weird.
We don't actively pursue that stuff, and I'm not saying we should,
Right.
because that's just a Canadian thing.
Yeah.
It's living relatives, the trauma is still there,
Yeah.
and you don't need to dig up that kind of a vibe,
Yeah.
especially with stuff with Robert Picton, the Highway of Tears. So I know when I was talking with some true crime people about why Canadians don't approach that, it's just out of respect.
Yeah, genuinely.
No.
It's just, it's like, ugh. Sometimes if you watch like any of the American true crime stuff, sometimes you're watching it, you're going, how did they, like, this seems so soon to be doing this? Do you know what I mean? Like, how did TLC get in there this quick?
Yeah.
Or how did Discovery Channel get in there like the day after and have something ready? It seems like almost intrusive.
And there's this weird fascination with H.H. Holmes, with the Cleveland Torso Killers, and those are more further out of reach, where it's not fresh. It's that kind of like, wow, this happened, and they never caught the Cleveland Torso Killers. So it's like, it is interesting. It lends itself to that mystique, but I definitely don't see that in Canada.
Sorry, my dog can't make up her mind.
It's all good.
Get it. Daisy, get in.
Being very cat-like.
She loves it out there. Okay, you ready for some rapid fire questions?
Absolutely.
Okay, so ghosts, are they friendly, mischievous, or misunderstood? Or all three?
All of the above.
Okay, good answer. Okay, your belief level, from 1 being skeptic, 10 being full believer.
4.
Good answer. Shadow people or full-bodied apparitions, what's scarier?
Shadow people.
Okay. I would go full-body apparitions, but I see where you're going with that. And the most haunted Canadian city, in your opinion?
I would say it would be a tie between Niagara-on-the-Lake
Yep.
and Halifax.
Oh, good call. Yep. Poltergeists or residual hauntings?
Preference?
Yeah, which one
Okay.
would you... If you had to.
See, the poltergeist is fascinating, and we've had a lot of interest in like the Shaw poltergeist and Esther Cox and all that. I would go with residual hauntings.
Nice. That would be
The
like...
tie-in. Oh, sorry.
No, you go.
The tie-in with history.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if there's no intelligence there, but it's a reenactment of what was going on, and I'd want to know what was happening.
Yes. UFOs or cryptids? Where do you place your bets?
Cryptids.
I knew you were going to say cryptids. Creepiest place you've ever visited, one word only.
Oh, Dorchester.
Nice. If you could interview one ghost from Canadian history, who would it be?
William Lyon Mackenzie King.
That's a good one. We did an episode on him, too. Funniest ghost story you've ever heard? Just the title or vibe?
Oh, my. Oh, just, there's one in John Robert Columbo's Haunted Toronto. It's titled Most Beautiful Ghost, and it's such a ridiculous story.
Most Beautiful Ghost. I'm going to have to look that one up. Ghosts, cool breeze or cold dread?
Cool breeze. I haven't come across any cold spots that were dreadful.
Oh, that's good. You're lucky. Okay, now Canadiana quick hits. Favorite Tragically Hip song?
100th Meridian. At the 100th Meridian.
Most haunted, and if you're not a hockey guy, that's okay, but most haunted NHL arena, Gut Instinct.
Gut Instinct. Oh, they're all new. Oh, shit. Sorry, I don't want to say that. Sorry. Maple Leaf Gardens is still
Right,
up.
that's what I was thinking.
It's called, what is it called now? It's a Loblaws, and they still have the other part to it still, but yeah.
Well, that's it. That's probably the most haunted. Beaver Tails or Nanaimo bars?
Nanaimo bars.
Right, same. Favorite Canadian urban legend?
Urban legend. I like the White Horse story in Manitoba. They've got a statue monument on the Trans-Canada Highway with regards to it.
Oh, cool. And best spooky Canadian location for a horror film?
Oh. I would love to see a good cinematic reenactment of Reznikov and Diabolos at the University of Toronto. University College.
Yeah, cool. And Sasquatch, British Columbia or Northern Ontario?
Ah, the Sioux Lookout man. I'm thinking British Columbia.
Yeah,
Harrison
me too.
Hot Springs. Yeah.
And most underrated creepy spot in Canada?
Most underrated creepy spot in Canada. It's a great question. Oh my
I'm
gosh.
thinking Hamilton for some reason.
Yes, the Hermitage. A lot of the buildings in the Hammer are. There's a creepy aspect to it. I found Thunder Bay.
Ooh, good one.
Thunder Bay, when I was there, had a weird vibe. And that weird vibe, I don't mean it in a bad way. It was an industrial hub and a shipping hub. A lot of the old buildings are not as pristine as you would expect in a city center.
Right.
So there's that downcast kind of vibe in the downtown core. That
Gotcha.
kind of just, yeah, it just felt, at night, there's a whole different kind of vibe to it all.
And your Tim Hortons order. I'm not judging. It's a judge-free zone.
No, it's all good. I would get a large 1 milk, 1 sugar coffee
Nice.
with a sour cream glazed donut.
Nice. Classic. And best province for a ghost road trip?
Oh, I would definitely say Quebec.
Yeah.
And I really want to learn more about Quebec City's ghost stories.
Yes, there's so much there.
Yeah, and it's my un peu français, I can speak a little bit, and then because I know German, I throw the German in there too, which
Yep.
makes it complicated and not good.
Yeah.
But I think I really want to explore Quebec stories more. Pick up a couple, even if they're in French, and just read the French ghost stories.
Quebec's a great answer and a perfect time for me to say something I say on every episode, which is, if you want something done, always ask a French Canadian. Next question. If Canada had a national ghost, who or what would it be?
Bessie Gideon.
Who's that?
In Carcross, Yukon.
Okay.
She is the proprietor of the Caribou Hotel.
Oh, I love
And it's
that.
either her or the Banff Springs Hotel bride, I guess.
Oh, good call. And what is your favorite Canadianism? Either word, phrase, or quirk?
Take off, you hoser.
And last but not least, East Coast hauntings or West Coast hauntings?
East Coast, just rooted in the history there. I really wanted to get out to Peggy's Cove when I was in Halifax, but I didn't get a chance to. So I'll get there and I'll
You gotta
see
get
the
there.
lady
My
in blue.
sister lives right there.
Oh, cool!
Yeah,
Awesome.
she lives right on the Bay of Fundy. And it's crazy. Her house that she lives in, it was one of the original settlers to come to, where she's in Annapolis Royal.
Oh yes,
Yes,
very
so-
haunted. Yes,
Yeah. So her house, her little township is called Litchfield, and she lives
Yeah.
in a house that was owned by John E. Litch. So, and she found the graveyard where he's buried, so she'll go occasionally and say thank you so much for the house, we love it, it's really cool. And the original house is there too. It's really cool. I'll have to take pictures and send them to you.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Oh no, that'd be great. Yeah, thanks.
And I think in Annapolis Royal is the oldest wood home still standing. And I went through theirs too. So next time you go to Nova Scotia, you got to stop at Annapolis Royal. You'll love it.
Yeah, no, Jeff Dell has done a maritime haunting, and they've covered Annapolis Royal, and it's just a fascinating place.
Right? It's beautiful too. And
Yes.
okay, let's hear, where can we get your book?
You can get my book, at any Indigo. They have one copy, usually in most spots. I know you can get it through Amazon.
Where do you prefer they get it through?
Dundurn or your local bookstore.
Okay,
Definitely.
there we go. So go to
Yeah,
Dundurn or your local Dundurn Press or your local
Yes.
bookstore. Do not buy it from Amazon.
Right now, I don't know when you're running this, but there is a 25% off.
Great.
You go to Dundurn Press's social media. They have what do you call it?
Like a code?
Code, yes. Thanks.
Okay.
And you put that in, and you get 25% off your order. So it is
Awesome.
available.
Well, I'm going to run it on Wednesday, which is a week from today. So
Okay, so it'll
still
definitely
be there.
Yes, yeah. Here, I'll give you the code here quickly.
Great. And then I can put it in the show notes and everything.
Excellent, yeah. So where are we here? Yes, Holiday 25
Holiday 25.
from November 17th to December 13th.
Perfect. So when this comes out, use Holiday 25 at the Dundurn Press website and get 25% off?
You bet, yes.
25% off. I was thinking 25 because December 25th. I don't know. It confused me.
It's all good.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Brian. I hope you have a great rest of your day. This was so much fun. I love your book. I'm going to finish it this afternoon.
Thank you so much. That's awesome. And I'm very chuffed that everyone's. I haven't had any negative feedback yet, so I'm
Love
very
that.
happy with that.
Yeah, you really shouldn't. If you do, I'll fight them. I'm just kidding. All right. Thanks. Say bye to Jen for me.
Yes, we'll do. Thanks. Hey, take care.
Bye. You too. Bye.